This is the Confessions Hotline. Please record your confession after the beep.
So my mom has been trying for a baby, and I've been putting Plan B in her coffees. I mean, I feel bad, but I don't want to have a big sibling gap age. And I want to be the only child because I get attention, I get money. So I don't know, man. Fuck it. UFS.
Hello and welcome to season 3 of We Should Be Writing. The season we unpack your scandalous and not so scandalous university confessions in association with universityconfessions.za on Instagram. I am Keamogetswe Matlala and today's co-hosts are Mpho Hlakudi and Elishevah Bome. Now, in today's episode, we take a deep and non-judgmental dive into Confession 964. We discuss the idea of having siblings, the pros, the cons, and the dynamics of not being the only child. I guess we have a lot of things to unpack in this one because we all relate in one way or the other. So let's get into it. I think, let's start here. This person sounds like they are in university, of course, right? But I think the age is around about 19, between 19 and 23, 24, the eldest. I think that's like the oldest they could be, because then they probably just left home and the whole time they've had their mother to themselves, and now that they're leaving home, the mother could be lonely and now they're considering another child. What do you think culture has to do with this decision to actually go as far as spiking their drinks, for lack of a better word, Mpho?
I think that culture doesn't have that much to do with it. If the mother was able to stay for so long without having other kids, I think, it's not so much a matter of culture. But in terms of African culture, as Mopedi, I think families are expected to be plentiful as a sign of fertility and strength of the homestead. And there is an idiom in my culture that says, "Monna get taga wanab," which would mean that men have to be plentiful and multiply. For women, it's quite worse because women are expected to have babies, and it's a sign of their value in society. And when a woman is able to have more babies, they are generally respected, and this is someone that the society looks up to, because this person can grow the family, and a growth in the family is a signal of prosperity, is a signal of the strength of this family. And that's just from the African point of view. Ellie, you're Jewish, so how do you think this would work?
So just from this person's perspective, I don't think that religion or culture have anything to do with it. But age gaps in Judaism is pretty normal, I guess. Big age gaps. Some people, and the most religious of people, are having babies at the same time that their mothers are having babies. In Judaism, having a family is huge. Be fruitful and multiply. A Jewish home is a home with children, and we have to continue our legacies through children. So I think, culture-wise, in a Jewish household, having kids is important, and age gap doesn't really make a difference. But Kia, in talking about age gaps, I know that you have some personal connections to this, because your mother happened to have a baby at the age when you were 18. So what are your feelings around this topic?
I think my feelings around this topic are conflicted, mainly because I think a couple of months after my mom got married when I was 15, I didn't even think they were trying for a baby, because my stepdad treated me like his own, and so I didn't think he would want another child, right? But I mean, still, in African families, the need for a son is always there for some reason. And so I think that's when they started trying for a baby 3 years later when I was 18. And when they told me, they were shivering, like they were nervous. It was a nerve-wracking experience for them. And I remember looking at them in their eyes, and they didn't even know how to break the news. And my mom had to take it up because my stepdad just couldn't, right? And how I took it was quite positive because and I don't think they expected that, but I took it positively. I was like, oh, I've actually at some point in my life wanted to have a child. And now that it's happening, I know I would have to sacrifice certain things. And then my feelings changed about it when he was actually born. And I realized I'm sharing everything now with him. And I was just like, you know? But overall, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad because I already had siblings that I didn't really live full time with from my dad's side of the family because I'm from two blended families. So on my dad's side of the family, I already had like 2 other siblings, going to 3 at the time. So yeah, I was basically forced to accept it. There was nothing I could do, and I didn't think of going as far as spiking my mom's drink. Maybe I should have thought of that sooner.
Exactly.
But you, Ellie, you grew up literally around a lot of siblings. You are the firstborn, and after you comes 4 other children. And yeah, you had another sibling much earlier in your life. So how was that experience?
Yeah, so I grew up with 4 younger siblings. The first brother was born like 18 months after I was born. So like our age gap is pretty close. And so my mom had 5 kids within 8 years, which is pretty crazy if you think about it. And props to her. I don't know how she's still standing, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, having siblings, it's a lot. There's like pros and there's cons. I think I've never not had like a cold shower every now and then because, you know, one geyser, 5 kids all showering at the same time. Wi-Fi, there's always a war over it. You know, there's fights. But at the end of the day, I think, you know, we are a tribe and we have so much fun. And like, they're like my best friends now. Obviously, like when we were younger, it was a bit more tough because of the age gap and the differences and whatever. It's like 5 different personalities. It's a lot, but I don't think I would change it for the world, honestly. I think being in a household with siblings, yeah, again, as I said, it definitely has its pros and its cons. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I can relate a little bit to that because so living with siblings is hard. Nobody wants to live their life feeling sidelined. As a middle child, you're just there, like, you're not the first child, you know. And so you're not the ideal, and you're not the last, so you're not doted over as the cute baby. So you're just there, like, you know, in some out of place, you know, and you don't even know what your place is in that family. And, you know, the dynamics of being middle child, you know, it's quite hard, and there's often this, you know, pressure from the older one that, you know, you have to perform in a certain way. You have to, you know, be good. You have to do all of that because your brother, if your brother can do it, you are expected to be able to do it. Actually, you're expected to do even more. And, you know, so it's quite a lot of pressure for the middle child. So, yeah, to an extent, I can relate to the confession, but I still think that spiking your mom's drink, that's a lot.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to the stereotypes that people have around only children, or rather like just the sibling life, where as a firstborn child, you have so much pressure because everyone is like, oh, you have other people looking up to you, and you feel like you hardly ever have time to just live your life though and make the wrong decisions. You're always looking over your shoulder, thinking about the fact that someone is taking example, is looking at you, and is literally going to mimic and imitate everything that you're saying. But I mean, there's an article that we read, right, by the New York Times in 2020 called "Only Children Are Not Doomed" by Emily Oster.
Yeah, so this article that we read, it's about only children. And obviously, I think when we were having a conversation before about this, Mpho was like, sometimes I wish I was the only child. And there's this like glorifying of the only child, the person who gets the most attention and whatever. And there's this whole thing that like, oh, if you're an only child, you're doomed. There's like this stereotype. And so in Oster's article, she brings up a bunch of research that came out of Norway. And in this research, it said that children without siblings are actually no more likely to be employed more or have higher wages or have higher IQs. And basically, there's going to be pros and cons on both sides of the fence, you know, whether you're an only child or whether you have siblings. And basically in this article, she said that, you know, although you might, when you want to decide to have more children because you're expecting to have playmates and friends for your children, it doesn't necessarily make your child going to be more social. And just because you have an only child doesn't mean they're going to be the most successful. So, you know, either way, I think whether you're only child or you have lots of siblings, research has backed that it really does not make a difference, in the long run at least.
Interestingly enough, though, this research found that birth order matters. Firstborn children, regardless of whether or not they have siblings, perform slightly better on IQ tests. They get more schooling and have higher earnings later in life. And they also score higher on personality measures of academic motivation than later born children. That probably talks to the pressure that I mentioned earlier, right? So she ended the article by saying that siblings actually do not have a large impact on most characteristics that we can measure. And in the end, neither the deprived younger sibling idea nor the awkward only child one hold much water. Parents now argue on the internet saying that having or lacking siblings is key to making your child the best that they can be. And evidence have found that this is not true. Actually, your decision about how many children to have should be just that. Your decision about what works for your family. Over the generations, we've seen how liberal parenthood has done away with the idea of having a lot of children to prove a point to people that are not even on this world right now, because the people that actually embedded all these traditions and cultures in our lives that we've inherited in society aren't even here anymore. And it does not matter anymore whether or not there's a status on a family or there's a value to a woman's body or whether or not fertility is a thing, because now we are exposed and educated enough about other forms of having children, and that is adoption and surrogacy and all the others. If anything, for me, I feel like the fact that your parent decides to have a child should be something you discuss with them, right? Mainly because you are going to be with that child for the rest of your life. Your parent is likely to live you with that child, and you're going to be stuck with them, raising them, having responsibilities, basically having them as your child for the rest of your life. And that is the kind of responsibility that you want to know about and prepare for emotionally.
And like, I agree with that on a lot of levels. But at the end of the day, your parents are going to do what your parents are going to do. They're adults. And so I think, we can control what we do. And definitely, I think this younger generation has a different idea of family, a different idea of having kids. But unfortunately, we can't control what our parents do. We can't control our parents' generation and their decisions,
Definitely. Having a younger sibling may cause a bit of panic, and there may be reasons this person may not want such things. But facts are facts. Maybe this person should chat with their mom and discuss their hesitancy. We don't get to choose what our parents do, unfortunately.
And now we pose the question to you. Would you put the morning after pill in your mom's food or drink to prevent the birth of another sibling? Let us know on our social media pages. We are Vuvuzela on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And thanks for giving us an ear for today's episode. Do follow us on all these social media platforms as well. Stay tuned for our next set of confessions. Until next time.